Imagine being on a jet that goes down and then learning that you are the only survivor. How would you digest this information? Would you consider it bad luck, good luck, divine intervention?
The sole survivor of the poisoning told the Supreme Court in Victoria he only feels half alive after the death of his wife.
Let's just talk about the basics of survivor's guilt. It is a real medical condition and a very common reaction to experiencing a traumatic event.
Is really this misplaced feeling that you could somehow have done something to prevent what happened. Maybe you should have been in a different place at some time. Maybe you could have done something to prevent it from happening. And so in your mind, you keep believing that you somehow could have prevented this from happening, and maybe you could have saved a friend's life.
And so, we come to the end. Thus far, we have heard some truly amazing and terrifying stories of people who, despite overwhelming odds, emerged from horrifying disasters and situations that almost guaranteed death, only to be cursed with physical, psychological, and emotional scars. What surprised me the most when doing my initial research into this subject was how many examples of sole survivors there actually have been. So to wrap up this series, I thought we would briefly look at not just one, but a number of other sole survivors. Terry Caffey was a youth pastor in the small close-knit town of Alba, Texas, where he lived with his wife Penny and their 3 children. On March 1st, 2008, 2 individuals by the names of Charlie Wilkinson and Charles Wade committed a home invasion on the Caffey family residence. Using a handgun and a samurai sword, they proceeded to kill everyone they could find in the house. Everyone except Terry, who was shot 5 times but miraculously survived. Before the 2 home invaders left the scene, they set fire to the house in order to destroy any evidence of their intrusion. Terry managed to drag himself out via the back door all the way to his neighbor's house, where the police were soon contacted. 1 day later, Charlie Wilkinson was arrested, along with Charles Wade, a further accomplice called Bobby Johnson, who waited in the getaway car the previous night, and Erin Caffey, Terry Caffey's own daughter. It was later revealed that it was Erin who orchestrated the home invasion and slaughter of her own family. This was due to her anger over her parents' disapproval of her relationship with Charlie Wilkinson. All 4 were sent to prison for the murder of the Caffey family and the attempted murder of Terry Caffey. Out of the family of 4, Terry was the only survivor. He has since remarried and started a new family and continues to work with the church. He made some appearances on TV, including a notable spot on the Dr. Phil show, talking about his experiences and how he feels about what his daughter Erin Caffey did. Perhaps the most tragic case of a sole survivor, Nathaniel Rodriguez only spent 1 day as a 5-year-old child when he was involved in a horrific accident along the 10 freeway in Colton, San Bernardino. On December 15th, 2024, Nathaniel was a passenger in a car with his father Edgar, his partner Melinda, and Edgar's parents Ramiro and Maria. The purpose was a planned family day out to celebrate Nathaniel's birthday. However, for some reason that has yet to be revealed, whilst driving to their destination, the car swerved off the road and down an embankment before hitting a tree stump. The car then burst into flames, with all 5 individuals still inside. Emergency services were immediately called and the bodies were pulled from the wreckage. All had died upon impact, apart from Nathaniel, who was barely alive. Both his legs were crushed in the accident and had received burns on over 50% of his body, and yet somehow he managed to survive. His mother Adriana expressed her devastation in a later interview. "That was very heartbreaking to know my child was awake while he was pretty much burning. Nathaniel had to go through various surgeries and operations on his already badly damaged body. This included the amputation of both his arms below the elbows, as well as extensive treatment for his burns and various bacterial infections. Out of the 5 occupants of that car crash, Nathaniel was the only survivor. As of July of this year, Nathaniel is still in hospital, in critical but stable condition, and requires the use of a ventilator. Friends of the family set up a GoFundMe for his medical bills, of which they have raised more than 3/4 of the actual goal. In what was considered the worst year for submarine attacks during the Second World War, in 1942, lowly mess steward, 25-year-old Poon Lim, a Chinese national, was working aboard the British cargo ship, the SS Ben Lomond. On the 23rd of November, a German U-boat launched 2 torpedoes that struck the cargo ship, and it began sinking within minutes. In the midst of the chaos, Lim managed to procure a life jacket and dived straight into the ocean. After a couple of hours of floating in the water, Lim spotted and boarded a small wooden makeshift raft, which just so happened to contain food, water, and a basic survival kit. For many, this may have appeared to be a very fortuitous set of circumstances. But a bigger challenge came when Lim was not immediately rescued. Hundreds of miles out in the Atlantic Ocean, days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Lim exhausted all his onboard supplies and had to resort to collecting rainwater from the raft's canopy. He used some nails from the raft and a hemp rope to form a makeshift fishing rod, and even resorted to killing and then eating circling birds. Despite several opportunities to be rescued, Lim spent 133 days adrift in the ocean. He was eventually rescued by some Brazilian fishermen in April of 1943 and brought to the Brazilian mainland to receive treatment. Despite some passengers and crew surviving the initial sinking of the SS Ben Lomond, out of 53 people on board, only Poon Lim survived. He went on to live a very happy life, eventually settling in the US and getting married. He died in 1991 at the age of 72. At just 4 years of age, Cecilia Sishin is among the youngest sole survivors I have researched. In 1987, Cecilia, along with her parents Michael and Paula, and her older brother David, had been visiting relatives in Pennsylvania. On August 16th, as part of their journey home to Tempe, Arizona, the family boarded the Northwest Airlines Flight 255 in Romulus, Michigan during a stopover. The plane took off at roughly 8:45 p.m., but it barely left the ground. Due to the pilots not checking if the flaps and slats were extended for takeoff, the plane rolled from side to side, hitting a number of light poles and the roof of a building before crashing down and bursting into flames. The wreckage was so vast that it was declared that no person could have possibly survived. While firefighters and rescue workers dug through the wreckage, one person, called John Theed, heard the faint cries of a child. He followed them until he came across Cecilia under some debris, still strapped to her seat. She was immediately rescued and rushed to hospital with third-degree burns and fractures to her skull, collarbone, and leg. Despite these injuries, she would go on to make a full recovery after 2 months. Out of 155 passengers and crew aboard the plane, only Cecilia survived. Much like Bahia Bakari, Cecilia received significant press attention while recovering in hospital. She was sent balloons, cards, various presents, and even thousands of dollars. She was dubbed America's Orphan due to her losing her entire family in the crash. After being discharged from the hospital, she went to live with her aunt and uncle, who shielded her from the public eye as she grew up, until she herself came forward to talk about what happened. Today, she is in her early 40s and happily married to her high school sweetheart.
few weeks, thousands of high school seniors will graduate, but likely none have faced the challenges as a senior from Granger High.
You may remember him, Shaw Ray. He survived a shooting that killed the rest of his family.
It is a widely accepted belief that a gunshot to the head is a pretty conclusive way to end a life, one of the few exceptions being the case of Shaw Ray. Born to immigrant parents from Myanmar, Shaw was the eldest of 4 children living in the very populous West Valley City, Utah. On Tuesday the 17th of December 2024, a concerned relative, Naomi Shote, visited the family home after 2 days of not hearing anything from the family. When she arrived, she was horrified to discover 17-year-old Shaw Ray on the floor of the garage with a bullet wound to the head, and yet somehow still alive. Naomi immediately called for an ambulance and the police, who searched the rest of the home only to find the dead bodies of Shaw's family. His mother Bu May and his 2 sisters were found in an upstairs bedroom, while his father, Da, and younger brother were discovered in the living room, all having been shot. It was later determined it was Shaw's father who was responsible for killing the family, making this an act of familicide. However, as already stated, Shaw somehow managed to survive being shot in the head. He was immediately rushed to hospital, but was in critical condition. What makes this story truly amazing is that Shaw spent 2 days without medical attention after being shot. He was also rendered almost completely blind. Out of a family of 6, Shaw was the only survivor. With the support of surviving relatives and his local community, Shaw managed to recover from his injuries, but remains blind to this day. Despite having to make adjustments to his life and still mourning the loss of his immediate family, Shaw completed his education at Granger High School. He has stated in an interview that he just wants to keep moving forward with his life. He has stated his intention to enroll at the University of Utah in 2026 to study pre-law. Officially recognized as the deadliest plane crash to have a sole survivor. In June of 2025, British citizen of Indian origin Vishwas Kumar Ramesh and his younger brother Ajay had been visiting India to spend time with family. On the 12th of that same month, Ramesh and his brother boarded a Boeing 787 Dreamliner plane, Air India Flight 171. For the purpose of returning to their home in the UK. However, just a few seconds after the plane took off from Ahmedabad Airport, it suddenly dropped altitude. The reason for this has been debated, ranging from pilot negligence to malfunctioning fuel control switches that stopped the plane's initial takeoff thrust. As the plane descended, it hit several buildings before bursting into flames, killing almost everyone on board except Ramesh, who sat in what was later dubbed the Miracle Seat 11A. Out of an unbelievable 242 passengers and crew, Ramesh was the only survivor of the crash. What is truly amazing is that considering how devastating it was, Ramesh received fairly minor injuries, only several cuts and bruises, along with burns on his left hand. After the initial impact, Ramesh managed to free himself from his seat and push through a small opening in the fuselage, then just walked away. He was taken to a hospital in Ahmedabad, but was not deemed critical. During his brief stay in hospital, Ramesh was visited by the country's Prime Minister. Due to his story being among the most recent, there's little to report what happened to Ramesh in the aftermath, other than he has since recovered from his injuries and returned to the UK with a world record to his name as the sole survivor of the deadliest plane crash in the world.